You know, I started my agency so I could escape my 9 to 5. Nice, man. How's it going? Well, I work 24/7 and don't pay myself ever. That just sounds like you got an even worse job. Save me! Please! Please! Come, I will hug you. Come. Come to daddy. What's up, guys? It's Frankie here. In this video, we're talking about those all-important profit margins, and I find a lot of agencies actually don't know what their numbers are supposed to be, and this makes it a little bit like you're flying blind. Like, should you invest in a team? Should you scale up? Is your system broken? This doesn't always come with a playbook, and so I want to give you guys some guidelines on where to expect your profits to be, and this will change depending on the stage you're in. So I'm going to lay out the different stages and what your margins should be at each stage as a general range, so you know if you're doing this right, and also so you can tweak your machine. And I'm going to show you guys some of the typical problems and challenges that will make it so you as an owner don't actually get paid. And then we'll talk about scaling this machine. For those of you guys who don't know me already, by the way, my name is Frankie Fihn. I wrote these two best-selling books right here, Beyond the Agency Box and Passive Automated Recurring Income, which I've also built 3 of my own agencies up to 100 plus clients, and I've helped thousands of people out there like you to live this more beach, less laptop lifestyle. Let's get into it. All right, so I'm going to break this down, by the way. Profits are a little bit of a mystery unknown. I'm going to break this down into kind of like 4 different stages of it. So one of those stages is when you are just what I would call a solo. It's just you. Your agency is one person. You're the janitor. You're the CEO. You mop up the floors at the end of the night. You're customer support. You're the one building the backlinks. Eventually, you have what's called a small team. So I'm going to just write small team, TM. And then eventually you have a big team and you have a big operation. And then eventually you have an agency that runs completely without you. And by the way, there are different margins on different stages. And so one of the things that I hear that's often a big trap is where people say, this is how much money you should be making, and they don't specify sort of what stage you're in. It's actually this much of a trap.
It's a trap!
It's a trap! So let's talk about when you're a solo, okay? When it's just you, you got a few expenses, like some software and some tools and shit like that, but your margins are like, they should be pretty fucking sky high. They should be 80 to 90%. If you don't have like freelancers and staff and things like that you're paying, and like you get hired to do a website or you get hired to do some pay-per-click and you are the one actually doing it, your margins should be like 80 to 90%. And if they're not, you probably need to ask some questions. And I'll tell you the number one reason why people don't have high margins in the beginning is because they think they need a bunch of software and tools that they actually don't. I see this where, I gotta have a website, I gotta have GHL, I gotta have a CRM, I gotta have Infusionsoft, and I gotta have 87 tools. So one of the big reasons that you may not find yourself being profitable in this early stages is you invested in a bunch of shit that people told you need, but you probably don't. And remember, the whole point of this was to escape the rat race, to keep your expenses low and lean. You don't want to end up back in another job that looks kind of like this.
Yeah, you apparently didn't put one of the new cover sheets on your TPS. You see, we're putting the cover sheets on all TPS reports.
So let's talk about when you have a small team. Now all of a sudden, like before you get paid, you have staff, you have freelancers, you have other people, subcontractors, things like that. And they often get paid before you do, right? So I would say in this range, like if you're doing 50% margin, you're actually doing really, really well, right? So if you have 10 clients and you got 3 people helping you and you're keeping 50% of the money and you're able to do that at that level of scale, you're kicking ass, just so you know. So you want to typically be in the 50 to 80% region. I'll tell you the biggest reason most people spend more than that is if you're doing custom one-off projects in here, then you're going to need a different freelancer again and again, as compared to, like, say you're only doing video editing, then you might just need one guy to help you with the video editing, right? So the biggest thing that stops people here is they're like literally just delivering too many solutions, and you have to learn how to say no if you want to be able to scale this thing. Now, the next stage is when you have a big team. Depending on how big your team is, your margins can be as low as 10% and typically as high as 50%. And by the way, if it gets big enough, your team will actually get so political where there'll be like little factions and cliques within it. If you have a team of like 100 people, that your actual office politics will look a little like this.
Why you think you done it?
Okay, number 1, Your Honor. Just look at him.
He talks like a fag, too.
And B, we've got all this, like, evidence of how, like, this guy Didn't even pay at the hospital. And I heard that he doesn't even have his tattoo. I know, and I'm all, you gotta be shitting me. But check this out, man. Judge should be like, guilty. Peace.
Plus, he talks like a fag, Your Honor. Are we still allowed to say that in 2025? I don't give a shit. Anyways, I'm saying it. If you guys want to cancel me, I don't care. Anyways, I love you guys, by the way. Don't cancel me. Anyway, so when you get to a level of a big team, depending on how big your team is, anywhere from 10 to 15% is very typical. When you get to the stage where you have an agency that is almost completely automated and runs without you and is very much like a franchise, often your margins are in the 10 to 30%. So I have friends who have 50 and even $100 million agencies. They operate at 10%. So a $50 million agency, the owner's keeping $5 million. The vast majority of the resources are going back into the business to over-deliver on client results, to get the best staff, to get the best team. And this is done by design, by the way. They actually keep their margins intentionally small because they want to deliver the best product at scale so that nobody can compete with them. So let's talk about the recipe. Where does the profitability come from? Okay, so one of the first places profitability comes from, if your clients are actual buyers in the industry, meaning the people who actually spend big money to get premium solutions. If you don't have that piece, and you're not doing a lot of little kind of one-off stuff for struggling businesses, going to be very hard to survive without a premium solution. So I want you to think about, how can I serve the top 5 or 10% of my market and deliver a premium solution, because it's going to scale so much better. The other big piece to this that nobody really thinks of, and I'm going to call this an SSRO, and an SSRO stands for simple, scalable, repeatable offer. And most agencies, by the way, are doing so much custom work that they don't have a simple, scalable, repeatable offer. I'll give you an example of one we built for ourselves. I would actually still be doing this today if Google had not cock-blocked a lot of our specific ads and stuff. But I created a solution that I called digital omnipresence for personal injury attorneys. And what I realized, especially a lot of the bigger, again, we're talking to the top 10% of the market, is they spent obscene amounts of money driving traffic, often millions of dollars every month, through TV ads, radio, billboards, etc. And they would do all this work to drive traffic to their website. And then once somebody clicked on it, they didn't really do anything. And so sometimes they would run a little retargeting campaign, but I decided to create the biggest and best retargeting campaign in the industry. And so we went after a couple of different places. So Facebook and Instagram, YouTube, and as well as like Google Display and the search retargeting that you can do. So what we did is we created a campaign, and we eventually added in some other things like TikTok, but we took, on each of those platforms, we took 10 or 15 of the client's best resources, and then we started putting them into an organized system. So for example, on YouTube, often clients would have like 10, 20, 30 testimonial videos, the ones who spend the big money. And so we would take 10, 20 of their 30 testimonial videos so that after somebody clicked on their website, they would all of a sudden start seeing a different testimonial video each time they got a YouTube ad. And it would be the same attorney, but it would be a different testimonial each time. We would also take 5 or 10 of their best social media posts, sometimes 15, 20, and then we would package them in a way where all of a sudden when a client clicked on their stuff, they would start seeing their best social media posts. Also, we used Google Display to highlight their reviews. So we would create a banner with a client testimonial and a 5-star review and start showing it to them. And we just started hammering people with social proof. Now, those of you guys who've ever ran retargeting campaigns, one of the things you can confirm, it's really cheap, right? Like, it doesn't cost a lot of money. They spent millions of dollars a month, but we could actually retarget most of their traffic for like $500 a month, sometimes less, even though they were $1 million spenders, because we're not trying to reach millions of people, just the 20,000 people who clicked on your website last month. And so what this meant for us is when we would get a new client, we would spend about 4 hours of setup getting all their best testimonials, all their best reviews, all their best social media posts, and a lot of it was just scanning their stuff and organizing it. And then we would launch it into a campaign. And then the beautiful thing about it is, if you imagine this as their website, somebody would click on it, and then all of a sudden they would start seeing all these different retargeting things across different platforms. So this one might be a YouTube video, this one might be a Facebook ad, this might be a Google Display banner, and this one right here might be like on an Instagram, whatever, right? Well, they were always driving new traffic. Like, they were always spending more money. So we didn't actually have to change those ads. So when we did that 4 hours of setup, after that 4 hours of setup, we just bill them every month for the system we created and really just update them on the progress. And so we could systematize, by the way, that 4 hours of setup. In other words, I could train a VA to do this. And so what we found is this is a simple, scalable, repeatable offer. We spend about 4 hours organizing your best stuff. We launch it into a campaign. We install some tracking pixels up here on the website. Then we're done. Then we just send an end of month report and say, yep, it's still working. Yep, it's still working. Yep, it's still working. Yep, it's still working. Month after month after month. And I believe we charge $2K a month for this. So even though this is probably on the smaller end of a premium solution, it's super easy to deploy and it's super scalable, right? Like we can do this again and again and again and again, and we just clone it from top person to top person. So a lot of times people create really complex deliverables. And if you have to update their website and their GBP and do some SEO and do some pay-per-click, I know some people are big fans of blended solutions. I'm not against them, but man, that's the opposite of simple, and that's going to be very difficult from an operational standpoint of fulfillment. As for this, we didn't even write a single ad, not one. In fact, we just took their best stuff, put it into the machine, clicked launch campaign, spend like 5 to 10 to 20 bucks a day or whatever, and go show these ads to these people. And that was really it. These are the two biggest things that'll stop you from scaling, in my experience, is that you either don't have premium buyers or you don't have a simple, scalable, repeatable offer. Nail those two things, by the way, and these margins get better. So even if we build an agency with this kind of machine that runs without us, we're going to be higher than 30%. We're going to be way higher than average because our machine is really simple. We don't need 27 employees to set up to do 4 hours of setup and send a monthly report, right? Another example that, just so you guys can wrap your head around, shout out to Scott Tacholke. So he created a YouTube ads offer for mortgage brokers. And in the beginning, what he was trying to do was get mortgage brokers to create videos. Now, if any of you guys ever had clients and you try to get them to create videos, firstly, they just don't do it. Secondly, if they do it, they sound bad. Thirdly, they don't know how to sell. Then there's all the technical stuff. Sometimes the sound is bad and stuff like that. And so he's trying to launch YouTube ads for his people, and they just kept fucking it up. So one day he came to the idea, do I really need the mortgage broker to be in the ad? And he thought about it more and more, and he realized no. So he decided to record himself and make a really bitchin' awesome video that would speak to mortgage people. And then in the video, the call to action was find out if you qualify, and he would direct people to what I would call a quiz funnel. So like a little like step-by-step answer questionnaire, find out if you qualify, and then he would pass that lead to the mortgage broker. Well, in the beginning, it was not a simple, scalable, repeatable offer because he was trying to do all this different shit for all these different people. But eventually, what he figured out is when I have my own ad that's working and I have my own landing page that's working, I actually don't need the client to do anything. So what would happen is a client would say go, Scott will install the YouTube video, and he's still doing this to this day, by the way, and then this is the quiz funnel where they ask him a couple of questions, and it's really just a two-step thing, and then it passes the lead over here to the client, like once they're qualified. And so the magic for Scott is he'll turn on the system and the mortgage broker will start getting qualified mortgage applications often in the first 24 or 48 hours, and there's nothing for the client to do. And for Scott, the total setup is about 10 to 15 minutes, which, by the way, there's no rule that says he has to be the one doing that. He can train a VA or somebody like that to do the 10 to 15 minutes of setup. And the real magic here is based on his YouTube video, which I would call a working asset. To me, that is the definition of using the Schwartz.
You have the ring, and I see your Schwartz is as big as mine. Now let's see how well you handle it.
So often you actually have the pieces of a simple, scalable, repeatable offer, but you don't have the whole thing. And a lot of it is, where can you remove the client from the scenario, right? Like in this scenario, the client doesn't have to record anything. They don't have to make anything. We're taking their existing assets and repackaging them. In this case, Scott is bringing the asset. He's bringing the working YouTube video. He's bringing the working quiz funnel. Mr. Client does not have to do anything. And in doing so, 10, 15 minutes of setup. In our case, it was about 4 hours, but 4 hours of one-time setup in order to collect $2K a month. By the way, we never had a single client cancel. The only reason we stopped doing this is because Google stopped liking personal injury ads, and they started saying, hey, you can't run YouTube ads, and hey, you can't run Google Display, and it just started shrinking our omnipresent retargeting, and so we kind of went to the drawing board and built something else. But having said that, like for those 2 years where we just did 4 hours of setup and collect $2K a month, almost at 100% margins and do very, very little, it's a pretty bitchin' awesome agency. So the magic of this is we started with the premium buyers and we built a simple, scalable, repeatable offer. So I hope you guys got some deep insights on this. Make sure to check out the channel and subscribe and for the golden dad guns. And may the force be with you.
On the agency box, it is all about scaling a digital marketing agency while eliminating meetings and phone calls. We actually sell our stuff phoneless. We don't have any client meetings, and we also hire our team entirely without meeting phone calls, which allows us to, you know, like actually kind of live a life. I've laid out the entire blueprint and everything you need to know, getting clients, onboarding, setting expectations, scaling, building a team, you name it. It has been a bestseller on Amazon now for over 5 straight years, but now you can get it even cheaper than you can get it on Amazon. So I can't tell you the exact price because it may change when this video is released, but there should be a link to it below, either in the description of the video or as well as a pinned comment. So if you're interested in that, check out that video and you can get a copy for super cheap.